got a color. You buy the drinks, she can be by the drinks.
The crayons too.
Yeah, you're gonna get those. Spencer's got way too many over there. He needs, here's what I need you. Actually, I need. Okay.
What do we got?
You tell us when, Natalie.
Oh, I have stuff from my old. You guys call me.
Okay, we will. So Grant, are you ready then?
Ready.
Okay, we're all ready. Is everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's go. I'd like to call the Monday, December 18th, 2023 monthly meeting of the Bexley Tree and Public Gardens Commission to order, and then call the roll. Oh, we could just go down the way, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Celeste Williams.
Here.
Linda Zupnik. Alternate Barb Giller.
Here.
Sheila Straub.
Here.
Susan Quintens here. Jim Wilson.
Here.
Then we'll call Mary McMunn, not here. Dave Wakeman, not here. We have a quorum. Mrs. Giller, would you like to fill in for Mr. Wakeman for now? All right. And then we'll go on to staff. Lynette Friedlander.
Here.
And Spencer Martin.
Here.
Elena Andrews, staff consultant.
Here.
Urban Forester, Grant Archer. Okay. And City Council Liaison, Lorianne Feibel. Good. Mayor Kessler will be with us momentarily. Okay, so we have exciting meeting, end of year stuff, all great. I am looking for approval of the minutes of October 18th. Let's see, I have to ask my antitrust counselor here. Can we do all the minutes at once, or do we need to do them individually?
I think unless there's objection by a commissioner, we can do them all.
All right, I will take a motion for approval of the minutes of October 18th, 2023, November 15th, 2023, November 17th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
A second. Is there any discussion?
They were long.
They were long. Jordan did an exceptional job,
You did.
and I'm sure that she may have help from staff transcribing them, and we appreciate any help that she was given, and we appreciate the great work that she did. And I know that Jim has read them, I have read them, and
All
Jordan
read
has
them.
read them. So if there's no discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes of October 18th, November 15th, November 27th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Would the minutes please show that Mary McMunn is here? We now have 7, including Mrs. Giller, whose alternate has been appointed for Mr. Wakeman. Are there any additions to the agenda? I'm just going to enlarge our but topic number 2, requests from residents. Alistair Reynolds, our ODNR Urban Forester, is with us today. So I'm going to just say requests or conversations from residents and visitors. So we'll slot Alistair in there. So we'll go on to announcements, small victories. I just wanted to call your attention to the first meeting of 2024. It's January 17th. And then we'll send out a whole schedule of meetings for the coming year. I also want to extend in-person congratulations to Celeste, a tree commission academy graduate. Yeah. So Alistair, I'm assuming that she passed, summa cum laude or.
Fantastic.
Good. And I asked Celeste if she would name 1 or 2 of her favorite highlights of the Tree Commission Academy, which is a year-long program.
Yes, favorites. Well, I got to meet Alistair and he's really awesome. He does such a great job for our state and our Department of Forestry. And what you've done and what Stephanie has done to build that program, which is unique, mostly unique to United States of America.
Oh, wow.
We have this in Ohio. And what they're teaching is extraordinary. The one part that I think is important from my perspective is that in undergraduate work, when I was in forestry, I took forestry, but it's natural resources, and then in graduate school, landscape architecture. When I was in that program, the architecture department was in competition with the botany department because they wanted to know how to take care of the other person's things and recommendation. But when I got to the Tree Commission Academy, I realized all that was secondary information. What's really important is that we pick the right tree for the right place, that we plant it correctly and we maintain it. That is really the grippings of it. This is the root system of and what we're doing here. And so I'm so impressed. I'm very humbled by the work that you have taught me and what your organization, your department is doing to help others, to help our community.
Thank you.
So Celeste, your stipend is the same whether you're a Tree Commission Academy graduate or not.
Yeah.
But we're
Right. Oh, because I said so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But-
Well, it's just, I'm really in awe.
yeah, but
I'm humbled and in awe.
yeah, but we're thrilled that you did the program. I hope all of us have a chance sometime to do it.
Yeah.
And that you are now even more educated than you were
I
before.
am.
and can
I
help
know
us
where
out.
to find information. too.
That's good.
I-
So Mary McMunn, were you going to do an end of year Bexley Bloomers report?
I am. I apologize for being late. First of all, I want to update some information on the Bexley Community Gardens. I had reported some hours and poundage previously, and I just want to update it to reflect year-end numbers. The garden had 1,197 hours of volunteer time throughout this season, and we donated 833.6 pounds of produce to the Broad Street Presbyterian Church. So we're very excited about
Excellent.
that. It's a lot of greens. So, and then we were honored with a proclamation by the city of Bexley in honor of the Bexley Bloomers, and the Bloomers contributed about 993 hours worth of volunteer time this year. We expanded our outreach and wound up working at Havenswood a few times, and we helped out the community gardens, both the north and south. We were honored to have Sheila take care of the Historical Society grounds and outside of the Community Foundation. So thank you for that. Thank you to Celeste for all your help with the fairy garden. It looks amazing, of course. And we appreciate your efforts there. We had some fabulous celebrity bloomers this year. And we were really excited that the Bexley High School girls soccer team joined us. They were a lot of fun and they plan to be back next year, which is great. We also had St. Charles boys come over and help us remove honeysuckle one Saturday morning, and that was a lot of fun and they did a great job. So that is my report for the 2023 bloomers.
So I think maybe some of you remember that our goal this year was 1,000 hours of volunteer hours. So we're 7 hours short. We had 993 hours. So
So
I
we'll be
remember-
shoveling snow, maybe.
Here. Maybe just put on your bloomer shirt. So the interesting thing is, as you may remember, the Bexley High School soccer team helped us out. And they have re-up for next year, so which is terrific. And I had an email today from the captain of this year's soccer team asking if she could come back next year and help out because it was so much fun, even though she wasn't going to be on the soccer team. So we're growing future bloomers.
Yes,
I'd
we
have to say.
are.
Yes. And Celeste, did you have any updates on the Fairy Village? Were there any photos loaded on that? There were not. Huh, okay. Okay,
No, not that I could. Is this before all the kids visited or? after
well, I
visited?
thought there was. There weren't motor. Okay,
I don't see them.
okay.
Well, everything, the last three installations are visited often and are in good shape. I go there once a week to check things out and sometimes we'll leave things there for the next children and it's all being maintained well, as in it is in good shape, considering, I mean, it's mostly in the same shape as when it was placed. So I'm happy about that. And it's fun to see kids be inside the tree.
Yeah, it's all fun. It's all fun. And our weather's been so temperate this fall that it's been fun to see them continue to play down there. So,
Yeah.
and thanks to Grant and or whomever, Spencer, Monette, Elena, who reinstalled the Little Free Library. It was in a different location than we chatted about, but it's good to have it back home.
Yeah, we talked with Mike Price and Natalie Mullins, and that was a location that they were good with.
Good.
So
Good. All right.
at least it's in.
It is it. And I just wanted to give you an update on the Trees for Bexley. I should say status at this point, although it seems that I need to find my records and I will get to those and come back to you. Let's see, one other thing is, as you might see, there are some wrap books by your place. If you could color those and put some stickers on them during our meeting, Sheila is then going to put them wearing the Bexley Treador costume into the Little Free Libraries. And there'll be gifts for children for, the time that they're out of school. And the books are Curious George Plants a Tree or Curious George Plants a Seed. So it could be that there are lots of pencils and things if you need more down there, Mary. Okay.
Yes.
I will. Okay. Good.
Okay. Oh, this is even a better box.
So are there any other announcements or small victories? So let's go on to our conversations with residents. Audra, do you want to talk at all today? Yes, if you come to the podium, if you'd reintroduce yourself and give your residence location.
Okay. My name is Audra Young. I live at 844 Chelsea. I have with my husband for 20 years and we have two children, a senior and boy and a daughter who's a junior. During COVID, I decided to go back to school at Columbus State and get a degree in landscape design and management. And as a part of that, I'm finishing that up in May. And as a part of that, I became interested in what was going on in Bexley. I've kind of always been interested in that and ran into Spencer as they were cutting down our tree a few weeks ago. And we got to talking along with Paul, and I think Mike was there too. And just had a great conversation that started it. Just as a busy mom, I wasn't able to pull things off before that, but it was a great starter. He told me about the tree commission. And then a friend of mine, Cecil Gook, introduced me to Susan, and we had a lovely conversation the other day about the commission, and just the history.
If they had to
Bexley
close the
and-
coffee shop, we might still be there.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just here to learn, see what's going on and meet all of you. And I really thank you for your work here. It's great. I'm
Oh,
excited about it.
Glad to have you.
Thanks, Audra.
Well,
Okay, and Alistair, if you'd like to come forward and say the
I'll
same
give an
thing, your
update,
name, your
couple
occupation.
updates.
Yeah.
So my year in review for Bexley, I had the Urban Forestry Fall Conference over at Capitol again in 2023. That was in October, and we gave out over 200 credit hours of ISA CEUs to arborists and urban foresters in Central Ohio. And we scheduled the venue again for next year, so we'll be at Capitol again next year. So I've had it. This will be the third time that I do it at Capitol. It's easy to do it there. They have a large space. We do it the week that the kids are gone, so there's ample parking, and then they have everything there that we need in terms of catering and IT support and AV equipment. So it just makes sense to do it there. And it's close to my house too, so there's a personal bias there. So yeah, that happened. I got your Tree City USA application for 2023 from Grant. He sent that over to me last week. That's great. We'll get that uploaded. What else have I done in Bexley? I helped out at the governor's residence And I've also been helping at Jeffrey Mansion with the upgrades that they're doing there and to look at the Jeffrey Woods and made some recommendations for management over there. Garden Club of America came to town. I helped with that. Celeste helped with that too. Maybe a couple others of you helped with that as well. So yeah, I think that's everything that I've done in Bexley this year.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has revised planting
That's
zones
right. Yeah.
for Ohio. And so I'm going to ask if you know what planting zone we are now.
Yeah, so Ohio's in a couple different planting zones. Historically, we're in 5B, with a touch of 6 in the southern part of the state. Well, I say historically, like the first plant hardiness map came out in the 1970s, and then it wasn't updated for like 30 years. And so in 2000, and I think 13, they updated it, or USDA updated it, and they decided now that with our changing climate that they would update it more frequently. So now they're doing 10-year updates instead of 30 years. So for a long time, we're in 5B, primarily in 5B. And that's from that original assessment in the 1970s that wasn't changed until 2013. So now we had a 10-year update again. And so now the majority of Ohio is in 6B.
Including Bexley.
Including Bexley. I'm sorry, 6A. 6B,
I think
6A. And then there's big chunks of 6B. And then there's some 7A in the very southern part of the state. So like historically, like that'd have been like Tennessee would have been like 7A. And then there's a tiny little dot of 5B left in Knox County. I'm not sure exactly what that area is, but a little microclimate there. But yeah, so there's this one tiny little speck of 5B left. So we are gradually getting warmer. The silver lining to that is that we got a little slightly larger plant palette that we'll be able to plant in Ohio. I mean, I love my native plants, but I also like southern plants too. So some examples of that would for that species. And you might consider that a near native as well. So a near native is a species that historically hasn't existed here, but neighboring states have them. And in those states, they provide a benefit to wildlife. And we have that same wildlife here. So if we bring that plant to Ohio, it will provide a benefit to our wildlife. So we call that like a near native species.
Does that mean they're native to that other state?
Yeah, so native to a different state that have same wildlife that we do.
So do you have a listing of, or a group of those near native?
Near natives. So I've started to develop one.
Okay,
I have, yeah.
okay.
And I'll share that with you.
Okay, and are there any trees, species that you're concerned about that you would be hesitant about planting going forward?
So, there's one crepe myrtle. Are you all familiar with crepe myrtle?
Can we grow them now?
So I went to the Ohio Turfgrass Foundation. The Ohio Turfgrass Foundation had their convention last week or the week before. And I went to that, and they have the crepe myrtle trials here in Ohio, and they've been assessing them to see if they'll survive. And right now, with those being in that slightly warmer plant hardiness zone, it's looking more promising for them, especially if you're in an urban area that has a heat island effect. So if you have a heat island effect, then you can grow crepe myrtle in Ohio now. In fact, at the German Village at the St. Mary's Church, several years ago, 2 of them were planted in the front, and they're doing really well.
So I have crepe myrtle shrubs I planted last year
Yeah.
on a closeout from Lowe's, and they did great this summer, and they bloomed for 2 months. They didn't bloom till
Yeah.
July. but
Yeah,
then
they bloom in
till-
the summer and they're beautiful.
Yeah, July and August.
The reason why I'm hesitant with that species is in the South, they call them crack myrtle because people are like addicted to them, and they plant them absolutely everywhere. Every street is lined with them. Like people just love crepe myrtles. So they call them
Yeah,
crack
I love
myrtles. So I can see it being very trendy, like boxwood is trendy, like hornbeam is trendy. It'll become a favorite amongst the landscape architects for sure. And our climate is at a point where it's going to be able to support them. Now, they do have scale problems. Everywhere that has them has scales, and the scales are pretty bad on them. Scales are an insect that suck the sap out of them, and they drop like a honeydew. It's a sticky substance, and then mold grows on that. And so, yeah, there is a downside to them, and that is more pests. Another update, if you do have boxwoods, we have a boxwood moth now. It's a new boxwood pest. We have so many boxwoods, so now we got boxwood leaf miners, boxwood blight, and now there's like this moth as well.
So is that about the 10th potential disease that a boxwood could have?
Right, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
and it just completely defoliates them, and it eats all the leaves, so. I would wait until you see it to treat it. So, I mean, I guess you could, but. Yeah, I would, and I'd wait to see, I would wait for confirmation that they're even in the county before I did anything. Or in Bexley, because treatment without diagnosis is malpractice, so. Yeah, there's that.
When will there be a honeysuckle blight?
Yeah, that would be lovely. There was a virus that was looking promising like 10 years ago, and I don't know whatever happened to the research on the virus, but yeah.
So Alistair, I just wanted to transition back to the question of which species of trees would you be hesitant about planting now, considering the trend towards a warmer zone?
Yeah, so the problem that we have with Ohio is that we are getting warmer, but we still get the polar vortexes and the really cold winters. And usually the limiting factor with plants is not typically heat, it's cold as you move north. And so even the crepe myrtles or the silver bells, they have that there is the potential there that they would get winter snapped. So I would be hesitant to plant any of them until I see more conclusive research and trials where they've actually been really successful.
Okay.
You think the Buckeyes will be okay?
The Buckeyes, I think the Buckeyes will be okay. And the maples are the species of concern, especially sugar maple right now is predicted, and black maple, it's predicted that they won't be regenerating in Ohio in 50 years. It'd just be too hot for them. They're a northern cold climate species, and we're kind of on the edge of their growing range. And so it's predicted that we won't be regenerating sugar maple in the near future.
Well, I think, Grant, you have found that in your takedowns, haven't you? This year, the number of the highest percentage, right, of takedowns.
These maples,
Yeah,
yeah.
sugar maples.
Sure.
That's also the largest number of trees we have.
Sure, right. And the reason why we have so many maples in Ohio is because we had the Dutch elm disease that went through in like the 1960s. And all the maples were recommended as species to replant with after that disease went through, especially the silver maple, because it was hardy. It could grow in really poor soil conditions, and it was fairly fast growing. And so it was one of the highly recommended species to replant urban areas with after all the elm trees died. And so now those trees are reaching, maturity, and, they don't compartmentalize well. They don't heal or seal over their wounds very well. And they're just kind of, we call them rock stars, where they live hard and die young. So, I mean, that's the reality of it, is they're at that age now where they're going to be phasing out. So it makes sense that would, one, that you'd have a lot of them, and two, that you're removing them now. So.
Any questions, Alistair?
There were 3 different varieties of boxwood now that are being developed that will be resistant to the blight. Is that sort of more of a marketing thing versus actuality, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of trials or how long those trials were. I'd have to read into that more. But yeah, we have boxwood blight in Ohio. So there's actually other states that don't have it, and they won't even buy boxwoods from Ohio because we have the blight. And the blight lives in the soil. And so even if you lose one plant to it, if you plant another one, it will get it as well. And all the adjacent plants will get it. So you have to actually remove the soil if you get boxwood blight. But then we also have the boxwood leaf miners, and now also a moth. So even if we get these boxwoods that are resistant to the blight, you still have the other pests that you have to worry about. So.
And would you replace that with a different recommendation?
Yeah, I would replace with like arborvitae or yew, or like a dwarf holly, or some other kind of evergreen shrub. So you get that winter interest, but not the pests. And usually those other, like the tater tot, arborvitaes. They're a lot cheaper than boxwood. Boxwoods are like $100 a piece. And some of those alternatives are a third of that. So I would go with those.
Any other questions for Alistair? Well, it was great to have you as a
Of
surprise
course.
visitor today. We do have an assignment for you. The mayor announced at our Bloomers lunch that an anonymous donor had given funds to plant 3 trees in Jeffrey Woods
Okay.
in honor of the founders of the Bloomers. So we all need to work together to figure out which trees are going to work the best in the woods for, I don't know, for the next 60 years, I
Yeah.
guess.
Great murders.
Yeah.
Great myrtles. Silver bell.
Silver bells. So there's the question that's out there, Alistair. We'll get back to you after the new year.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. All right. Let's review of landscape applications. Elena, you have good news for us.
There are none.
Yay. That is good news. Although I do miss not having an audience here
Yeah.
to learn from them and for them to learn from us. So Grant, let's go on to your end of year staff report.
Yes, so just to give you an update of what we did this year. So we pruned over about 240 trees. We did focus a lot on the lindens this year because they needed it. And so we did a lot of structural pruning on those. Removals, we contracted out about 60 of the large removals, and then we have another about 40 removals that we're doing in-house. So that's about 100 removals throughout the city. We planted over 200 trees this year.
Would that include the trees on the medians on Drexel or not?
Yes, it includes the trees on Parkview, the trees on Drexel throughout the city. I mean, Schneider Park, Commonwealth. So a lot of the trees a lot of our funds were focused on the parks this year, which they really, really needed it. And I don't know if you've walked them yet this year, but they all look amazing. So stumps are still out there. We're still working on them. But that's about it. And then I have Spencer here to give an Arboretum website update.
Are you able to go onto the Arboretum website itself from the computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Spencer, you could start sharing with us while they find the website.
Yeah, so this is just
Hey, can you pull pull the microphone closer to you.
Bexley or Arboretum?
so since summer, kind of, I've been, for those who don't know, working on the website in my spare time, and also the Instagram. We started a new Instagram for the Bexley Arboretum. That's all going well, and so yeah, basically, I've started with the introduction on the website, and I kind of changed the wording and switched focus to just being about the trees in our community, and with kind of the with the visitors in mind, because hopefully, as years go on, I'm hoping to kind of draw in Arboretum tourism. So, I want just people who don't even know about Bexley to be educated on what we got going on over here. And then Grant and I have been we have embedded the tree plotter, which is on a different page there if you're watching. But so that's that provides public access to our tree inventory. And we also, Grant helped to put the utility shapefile on the tree plotter, and we're actively working, trying to get the right of way, see if that's possible, that shapefile as well. The Husky link has been installed on the Arboretum website, which offers residents to see quantitative data of how Bexley compares to our urban forest around the world, to different communities around the world, which is a kind of a cool platform.
Have you done that yet, Spencer?
Yeah, that's embedded. And there's a button on the website there. If it's on Trees of the Arboretum, if you're looking for that now, Grant. In addition to that, we have the Planet Geo canopy study on the website. So one of my goals was just to help kind of make as much data about our Arboretum accessible to the residents and people interested in what we have going on here with our trees. I've also split up some of the pages on the website to kind of have a more defined focus and to make navigating our website easier. Tree walks, guided tree walks, they got their own page there. And so I felt like that was just an easy way to simplify the Arboretum sections and just help it easier to find, expedite that information, because I think that those should be utilized more. Put more blog post on there, including one Mary McMunn helped me with. So if you're wanting to read about Willow Oaks, you should check that out. She did a good job, and that's on our website. Updated a new narrative for our to complement the landmark tree map. And Sheila, I have some pictures that Sheila helped source for our landmark trees, which is great to have current trees and photos of our arboretum.
Do you have that massive southern magnolia landmark tree?
I don't think-
The one on Pleasant Ridge?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great tree.
Yeah, it's a fabulous tree.
Also on our about page there, I included kind of a brief history of how we became an arboretum. I know a lot of people there are aware that we are an arboretum, but they're not necessarily sure with kind of the qualifications that we've met. And I thought that was kind of pertinent information to include on the website. And on the highlight page, now we have a Bexley Park subsection. Just because for visitors or residents who aren't aware, I wanted there to be a resource so that they can find all the public green spaces in our city. And I've also just been kind of eliminating redundancies and editing phrasing and putting hyperlinks throughout the website to kind of make navigating our website easier, as well as just kind of promoting site engagement. And yeah, just kind of refining, a lot of the language. There's still more work to be done, but I think it's headed in a good direction for promoting our arboretum.
So Alistair had given tours at the Ohio Governor's Residence last year for Arbor Day. I don't know if Mary will do that again this year. Certainly was well received, but then the Ohio Governor's Residence did share, and Alistair and Mary know the species from there. So I think you have those listed too.
Yeah, I have I've on the trees section there, the trees of arboretum, I have kind of reduced that to only being the tree plotter and our kind of a glossary of the trees in Bexley. That process takes a long time because I kind of include every species, and also I have like a link. I outsource additional data so residents can learn about the trees that they have on their property, and that just takes time. But yeah.
So if you have, I'm assuming suggestions for.
Yeah, I'm open to suggestions. Yeah, it's still a work in progress for sure. Spring was really busy for us, so I do this just on the side when we're not responding to storm damage and pruning and otherwise there's other responsibilities. But yeah, I'm definitely open to, you can email me with any opinions you have about what you want included on the website.
That's great. Well, this is what you say, always a work in progress, but certainly
Definitely
progress has been made. So
yes. Yeah. I've had more time in the last few weeks to focus on this and make some good progress.
So I would suggest that when you're awake at 1 o'clock in the morning, that you get on the computer and look at the Arboretum website. It really is fascinating, and the upgrades that Spencer's done, and bring back suggestions of things you'd like to see or that you were looking for and need some help finding, because sometimes the wayfarer is obvious to the originator, but not so much to the reader. So
I don't know if this is something that would interest you. We're bringing in virtually Dr. Andrea Brennan from Morton Arboretum. She's going to talk about ArbNet, and she's going to talk about Arboreta from around the world. Is that something that would interest you as far as putting it on that website, or?
I haven't really established like a current events page on the website. I think my first reaction would be maybe to put that information on the Instagram, that kind of as a live feed of what we have going on in the moment. And I've amassed a small following of interested Bexley residents. So I think we could, if you send me some of that information, I can put that on there.
Okay, it's January 17th. Pardon me. Yeah, it's gonna be over at the library, so we're definitely promoting it, but I will do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
think
great.
maybe send it to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great.
Definitely. All
Okay.
right, thanks.
Any questions for Spencer? Well,
Looks
thank,
great.
yeah, thanks very much, Spencer. So
Yep.
Mayor Kessler, first of all, for the minutes, Mayor Kessler is here. And that's why he can give a report. So Mayor Kessler, your turn.
And therefore,
And therefore,
it is
here he
not my
is.
robotic. Oh, man. Look at that strategic plan. Good work. There it is. I was going to talk about that, but before I talk about that, I want to tell you that the budget passed council last week, which is very exciting. And in it, we have several things that I think will delight our tree and public gardens commissioners. Some you may know about, some you might not even know about. Some Grant might not even know about. So we'll, I don't want to bury the lead. Never said that before. Am I using this right? I don't want to bury the lead. We're going to hire 2 new grounds crew people that will, yes, it's exciting. So it will help in a couple different ways. But I think the most impactful, what we're perhaps most excited about is that those folks will help kind of be a force multiplier for our tree crew, especially in the off season when they're busy with removals and stump grinding and such. And so it's a way for us to catch up on some of those items that have been kind of piling on, and then free up our tree crews to do some more proactive pruning programming and that sort of thing. So also we'll take over some of our landscape contracts. You know, every year we do something different the way we contract things out, just because Grant likes that stuff. It keeps him coming to work every day and excited.
Is that right, Grant? Yeah, okay.
We also have funds for redoing the Cassidy Gateway wall, which does need to move as part of the Cassidy project that Columbus is doing. And so we put some money aside for that in the budget. Don't have any definitive plans yet for that, obviously, but it's anticipated.
Is there a timetable for?
Don't know. Yes, I'm thinking it might. You know, they're in the acquisition phase right now.
I wondered
It's
about that.
possible it kicks off in 24, just in case we put it in the budget. I don't really want to jump the gun with that wall. I think it makes sense for all of it to happen kind of at
Right.
once. But we'll know more once Columbus has finalized their acquisition.
Okay,
Jeffrey Woods, we have put money in the budget for 2 different items, invasive species removal, as well as native habitat restoration area, sort of a sample section for that, kind of anticipating that as part of our Jeffrey Park master plan process. Have a placeholder for both of those.
so can you expand on no, okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
We're waiting for the plan to be finalized, but we just know that from those conversations. And in fact, there's an asterisk on both of those items to say we would seek grant funding to assist. The scope is not yet determined.
Okay.
It's just coming out of the conversations, we have a rough idea of what the budget might
Yeah.
need to be for removal of invasives throughout the park and a kind of a trial native habitat restoration area. That the numbers I have in the budget might all be off, but they were based upon some expert estimation from what was that? Who was that? Do you remember? Who was at our meeting? It wasn't. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a dollar figure that does have a basis somewhere. Was it? There we go. I thought so. I don't want to put you on the spot though. And then, of course, we have a standing sort of allotment for the tree commission. It's also in the budget.
Is it the same as last year?
I think it is the same as last year. And then we have funds set aside for the launch of the Main Street Design Guidelines process in 24. That hasn't been scoped out yet, but it does dovetail with my next thing to talk about, which is that we have hired and council has confirmed a new director of administration and development, Megan Meyer. Megan is coming from Whitehall most recently, where she's the acting city administrator. She was the assistant city administrator. She worked for a bit in Glencoe, the village of Glencoe in Chicago, and she's worked up Arlington. And she hasn't worked in all these places because she's skipping around jobs. Her husband relocated to Chicago for a little bit. She followed him and then came back here afterwards. So all that to say, she has a really excellent background in development, communications, community affairs, and city administration. And so she's gonna be helping out with a lot. And one of the things I'm gonna ask her to do is help steer the Main Street Design Guidelines process, which is good news for all of you because she's very systematic and focused. And I think will ensure that things get kicked off in 24 on that. So we'll be coming up with a process for that together. And cooperatively with all of you, of course, and those who are interested. Finance director, we have, probably this doesn't matter a whole lot to you guys, but we're about to appoint a new finance director with Beecher having announced that he's retiring in the first quarter of next year. Our leaf pickup is almost finished. We're in round 3, should go quickly. And land use strategy is going to start meeting again in January. And our strategic plan passed, which is what Grant had pulled up. Reading my mind, Grant, how did you know I was going to go there? So you guys have seen this before. We added some verbiage about tree canopy into the sustainability goals section, which is near the end. If you wanted to go to it, Grant. As with, yes, you have to scroll. You have to actually just go faster. You got this.
Yeah, it's kind
If
of.
you want to go real fancy, hit command and arrow down, and it'll go page downs. Try it. You'll love it. Oh, nope. That's no. Well, so where are we? Oh, page 51, is that what you said? Yeah. So just again, this is as with many of the objectives in here, this is outlining aspirations, not dictating exactly how it happens, but just talking about continuing to grow the Bexley Arboretum, infill and maintenance of street trees, focusing on carbon sequestration, which will also end up showing up in our climate action plan, as I think is alluded to somewhere in our agenda here. But otherwise it's very similar, some tweaking, some typos, and another objective added in another section based upon feedback, I think in the development goal section, but fairly consistent. Happy to answer any questions. Yep.
Based on what Alistair was suggesting, that we would be having these new, what did you call them? Near native trees. Should we be bringing that into our vocabulary and put that on there? So what native Ohio trees may not apply in 5 years.
So, Mayor, I'd like to take that little blurb and have us discuss it in like I think Jim had it for new business, maybe old business, but it was business. Because, although we suggested it, the tree commission itself hasn't had a chance to kind of vet it. So if that's okay, if the strategic plan is more dynamic than static, could be
Certainly
a discussion topic.
Yeah, certainly certainly dynamic, not static. And if the strategic plan is like a inspirational document that pushes us in a certain direction. If, for example, we would find that street trees and trees in the parks should not be focused on native Ohio trees, or they should be focused on
Near natives.
Near natives, or we should intersperse additional species in order to bolster the Arboretum educational piece. That I don't think any of that is inconsistent with this language, but I'm happy to discuss it. Yeah.
And
Mary McMunn made me write that final sentence. So I'm just kidding. She
No.
didn't have any input in that. That's all straight from me.
no, okay, but no, but I think I'm thrilled that we're in the strategic plan. And I I think that it's the basis of a good discussion. Lots of good words in there and
Yeah.
lots of additional words that could be added.
Love it.
I love words, so. All right, Mayor, are there other things you'd like to share with us today?
I would just say that as it pertains to the strategic plan, one of the founding principles of that is that it is incorporating other strategies. And so, for example, if the tree commission would come up with a planting strategy, then we could incorporate that into as an easy revision into the plan. The plan's not really designed to delve into some of the details you're talking about.
Right.
So that might be a good way to incorporate a deeper philosophical expression of what we're looking for.
Okay.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Wilson.
Wilson.
I'm just wondering whether you disclosed to our new development director that our ordinances say that she's a ex officio member of the tree commission.
I tried to hire her, Jim. I wasn't trying to drive her along. Just kidding. I didn't disclose that, but I'm sure I in fact did not recall that. So I'm sure she'll be excited to know that.
Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, so let's go on to the staff report of Elena and Monette for Year of the Parks and installation reviews.
Okay, so my portion, I took just a couple of photographs. I don't know who has been out there. I wanted to show the PDFs of the pictures, the pretty pictures. Yep. On that one, the Commonwealth Park is probably 95% completed. So these are just a handful of pictures that have been taken over the last week or two now that the pond has been actually filled. So as we go, you can see on this one, I'm standing on kind of the southeast corner of the pond looking across so this is the shallow end. And so the shallow end where you see those steppers is probably literally only about 10 inches, 12 inches of water. And there are those little stepping stones that go across. And then the bridge that is the mid pond, while that looks solid, it actually is on concrete piers that will allow any kind of aquatic life that might go in there to actually, swim through there and take it as a place of refuge. That center island is going to have a blood good Japanese maple in the center of that. And the idea is that, so we have a tree island that is kind of the center focus, and it will be replaced once the commission statue of Grant Archer is completed.
Are funds
Holding
being
up the tree.
solicited now, Grant?
Yes, we are currently accepting donations. We've got a GoFundMe page. And so so if you keep going, so there are, this is a more recent picture. So there is the decomposed granite pathway has changed. Now the design changed slightly from what was approved simply because the pond, when we were out there and staking it out with actually having all the leaves on the trees, because as you know, we started this, I think in May, working closely with Grant and Spencer to make sure that we were avoiding all of those oaks as much as we possibly could. So it changed slightly in terms of, because trunks sometimes, obviously, we have the trunks on the plan, but not necessarily the full spread of the canopy. So the pond shifted a little bit, and we also made it bigger because the proportions that had in that space just felt relatively teeny. So we worked with that, and then we now have the paths are being installed. The line that you see there, that still needs to be cut out, and then that decomposed granite will fill up to the side of the stone wall where it's adjacent to the wall, and the rest of the material on the other side is actually going to have lawn going right up to it. So again, just a couple of different views of this. And then now you can kind of see that path.
So you're saying there's not going to be plantings to the right of that path?
To the right of that path, yes, there's going to be a little bed to the right of that path. Not all the way along, but yeah, a little bit beyond. Yep. And then just a couple of looks at the kind of the bridges that go across. The bridge in the center that was actually specifically designed so that people who are potentially who want to have an experience of crossing the pond, but are maybe a little bit not quite as sure on their feet, that's about a 3-foot wide pathway that goes across. And those stones are kind of cantilevered off on these concrete piers that you really can't see when you're looking at it. So it does look like they're somewhat floating, but rest assured that they are doweled into concrete that is down into the ground with steel, reinforcement. And so those, they're not going anywhere. And we keep going. The edges are then completed. There's one on the opposite side of two that I didn't get a picture of. My apologies, but the opposite side also there's a circle that has the dogwood circle. The dogwoods are all installed in that as well. These corner elements are going to have the annuals that you see throughout the city installed. So the idea is that Drexel Circle will be connected to all of our different parks. And so the same type of material and plants that we use there for annuals will be here, just so people start to make a visual connection. Oh, that's a city park. The next one are a couple of images in terms of Schneider Park. Muddy. But I want to show that the steps have been installed. We still need to seed it. There's still some boulders that are coming, but this is where the old wood steps used to kind of go down on that path. We have regraded that hill, so there's not really much of a kind of like a hump anymore. So it's a much more kind of a gradual grade. If we keep going. This is now looking at the birch walk where the stones will be installed, where there's the gazebo and then the fire pit. And then if we keep going, there are a little bit more close-ups. This is then at the base of the hill. This is where the start of that birch walk is going to be. So basically you, in general, kind of meander in between the birches where the stones are going to go. You can see the liripe at the base where there is just gross mud that will, in theory, all be lawn. We keep going, looking out at the fire pit to be able to have a little bit more of a viewpoint overlooking Alum Creek. There's going to be a steel liner that's in the center of that will help protect those stones. Those are antique barnstone, sandstone that were from foundations of old, barns that you see throughout Columbus and central Ohio. Another view of the fire pit area. More of the trees. There are a lot of trees, a whole bunch of trees. And then just a small detail of this is a rebuild of that center kind of turnabout where we have the boulder walls, and then these are all native plant materials. And so this is basically going to be a native perennial garden. And then based on one of the conversations that we had from the tree commission saying, we had a couple of boxwoods in there. We took them out. The idea is that this is a full perennial garden and the winter interest is with the stone and the boulders, but you can see in the back a little bit, we've added an evergreen. You can see the small red twig dogwoods. There are some, there is some interest. As those get bigger, hopefully they will, provide a little bit more of a presence along and through there. So there still needs to be benches that will be installed along here. We're looking at options for chess tables along and through here, updating all of the garbage cans to make sure that they all kind of work together. So I didn't know if people had been to these parks and walked through them. Just wanted to share a couple of images of what they're doing, but I do encourage everyone to walk through them. They're starting to finally take shape in December.
So questions for Elena?
Question for either Ellen or Ben. I've had a couple of my friends ask me about the pond and they wondered, is it named? And how's it funded? I didn't have an answer.
Pond is, so the pond is internally mostly funded through a community foundation grant. And it has not been named. Naming rights are still open to individual donors. I think our naming rights policy suggests at least a 50% contribution to cost, which is currently around $350,000, or with the 50% of that. So the Zupnik Pond, 175.
A checkbook for you.
Yeah. After you have to survive a social media search just to make sure that isn't there something in there about, I'm making jokes right now, so sorry. And also commission members, council members, board members are invited to our first Commonwealth Pond Polar Plunge, which is happening on Boxing Day at 11 a.m. So we're welcome.
But the mayor has a stipulation. If you come, you have to go in.
That's right. You just
No
can't.
hanger on.
This is not for observation.
No, right.
And if you come, having heard that, still thinking you're going to observe, then you will observe from the water. So
Yes. And have you had people sign up, or are they just considering checking the weather?
I've signed up. I think Mike Price has signed up.
Okay.
Grant Archer, I think.
Grant's going to be there.
Signed up. He's also.
Christmas is on
Yeah. Stay right there.
Oh, Lorianne, we'll get you in there. We'll get you in
So
there.
Alistair and Audra, the invitation's open to anybody, so.
That's gonna be Aces and get her full tops and train.
There you go.
Yeah. So questions for Elena?
I have a question about the polar bear plunge.
Yeah, okay.
What part are we, the waiting part, does that count?
No, the plunge is from the bridge, the middle bridge to the island and back. And
To the
so
island
it's
and
not a big distance, but you can definitely swim. It's got the depth to swim. So you're gonna, what's that? Maybe 30 feet, 20 feet,
Maybe 20 feet, probably
maybe.
20 or 30 feet.
I'm
And it's
assuming this
and it's
will be-
5 feet deep. So
This
you
will be
could-
on video,
you could
right?
stand.
Someone will.
No, that
No
would,
cameras
that would
allowed.
be an observer. The camera is not allowed to observe
Bathing
either.
suit.
I think this would be a great
December.
fundraiser. This would be a great fundraiser. Okay.
This is a judgment-free zone. No cameras. Thanks.
Okay. Well, Elena, thank you. Thank you. This, I mean, the Year of the Parks is not only a victory for the residents, but it's courageous. I mean, really, it was courageous to start out and get as far as you did and, you know, with
We have more to come. Year of
Positive
the Parks
energy.
is a spirit, and that spirit lasts into 2024.
yeah, I mean, you
Christmas
might have to take
all
that
year.
spirit onto other things, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
So there are actually, there are small steppers that are buried about 18 inches below the surface that lead from the west end of the pond into the island that you could go out and service it, but it's going to be interesting to see how we get that tree in there.
a crane. Yeah, we're creating.
Yeah.
I think you see what acorn.
What, a little baby guy.
But-
Take soil out and put that somewhere and put a tree in, soil that, get the tree out there.
Well, we have barges.
We're gonna have a rowboat.
And actually, the way it is really cleverly designed that wearing waders, you can easily work in the island and service it. Like, it's pretty impressive the way it was thought through. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Monette, on to landscape installation reviews.
Yes. So I passed around, hopefully everyone received a copy.
Get your microphone a little closer to you.
sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully everyone has a copy.
Yep.
Okay, just a updated project list. And Lori, would you like one? Thank you. Sure. So I just highlighted the changes in gray so they stand out a little easier. So I've been able to get to 4 properties, which aren't many, but in the midst of going through this process on those 4 properties, we've worked out quite a few bugs.
Good.
So, and making our own process, things should be going faster from here on out. And thankfully, looking forward, I have 2 weeks off of work the rest of this year. So I will be able to commit a little bit more time to getting through this list, because my original goal was to complete the residential list reviews by the end of this calendar year. I'll be close, so it'll be good. There was 1 inspection approval, which was TPGR 20-3, 189 North Merkel. So I've uploaded those to the Viewpoint website and my notes from my visit and the plan as it was approved. So that was nice. Then I also was able to get to 2730 East Broad, which is TPGR 22-2, and was able to provide a list for Mr. Che on the missing plants that he needs to provide before he's able to continue work on his garage, because I heard that he's looking to start some work on his garage. So the next application after that was TPGR 23-1, which was 2540 Maryland Avenue. That was an incomplete installation, and we checked in with the applicant, and it's incomplete because the plant material wasn't available. So the homeowner opted to wait until spring for the plant material to become available, and he'll alert us again when he's able to get everything in, and then I can come by and inspect that one. And the next one is TPGR 23-6, 2831 Dale Avenue. It was also incomplete per the plan. I've checked in with the applicant to see if they are complete and would like to resubmit, or if they still have work to do. I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay, any questions for Monette? So is the process different than you anticipated? Or is it pretty much?
It's not too much different. No, I mean, it's just getting used to we're trying to make everything digital. So getting used to the platform to make sure everything's digital so that everyone has access to it at all times is the goal. So.
And I think just to let you all know, in terms of one of the things that when Monette and I have been walking and looking at the sites, a lot of times things, and this just happens in general construction, both with architecture as well as landscape, things change in the field, right? And so sometimes things might not fit, things might not be measured correctly. Trees might be in the middle of, driveways instead of actually on a sight line. We've come across that before. But in general, what our approach has been is that if there's a landscape installation and it's going to fit with the overall design intent, and in general, it has the majority of the plans there, we will most likely probably approve it, right? There was one particular property that we looked at that had way more plants than they originally said that they were going to put in. We're like, fantastic, that looks great, right? If a resident has chosen to do that, we felt that it was probably not necessary for them or for you all to then review the plan, right? And so there are more plants here. Are you guys okay with that? Odds are most of the people I think of the commission would say yes. When there is an applicant where plants are missing and they're not actually there and they're not planning on it, that's then when we are giving them the opportunity, hey, this is missing. Do you know it's missing? Is it coming back? If not, you need to come back to the tree commission. So some of that is kind of like, how do we want to approach this and make sense in terms of understanding that there might be something that it wasn't available. Oftentimes there, a landscape designer might pick plants that's like, this is fantastic. And a contractor can't find it anywhere because, for instance, right now, white dogwoods, super hard to find, right? And, people are just having a very difficult time with that. So contractors oftentimes will say, can we substitute this? And if there's a substitution for a plant material, if there was supposed to be a hydrangea there and it's a viburnum, odds are Monette and I are going to be like, that's fine. There needed to be a shrub there. There's a shrub there. But when things are just blatantly missing and things are not installed, that's when we're going to flag it and then kind of take it on to the next thing. So part of it is also not only taking the time to review the plans, but deciding what is the best procedure to move forward to kind of remedy that situation. Does that make sense?
Makes good sense. Okay. Good sense. It sounds like forward movement regardless. So thanks, Monette, for being on board and for your great relationship, long-term relationship you've had with Elena. It's a benefit to all of us. So.
Yes, we recently counted how many years that was, and we don't like the number.
You don't need to tell. This is not truth or consequences, so we're okay. Okay. So if there's nothing else for Monette, let's go on to old business. Jim has trees. He has the first, second, and third topics here. So Mr. Wilson, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. So most of this is stuff we've touched on before, but wanted to give some indication of forward movement. Tree plotter, you heard from Spencer, but I'm not sure if everyone followed. One of the things after we implemented tree plotter, we realized was missing is the property lines. And so we've been, Spencer indicated, we already have the utilities in there, which is useful when we do our march through Bexley and figure out where we could plant more trees. But it's useful also because property lines are so different from street to street to have that. We're figuring out, or more precisely, Grant and the mayor and Spencer are figuring out how to get that loaded. What we have is a file, but it would reload all of the trees that are already in there, which would make us look like we had 80% canopy, but that might not be good. But so we're working out that technical difficulty. So hopefully when the new year comes, we'll be able to fully utilize tree plotter. And, when it's 10 below, we'll send you out to figure out where we should be planting trees.
This would have been a good day for a walk.
Yeah. That's the update on tree plotter. Canopy measurements, I may have mentioned this before, but I can't remember because the last 3 meetings we've had are a blur to me. You all remember that the last canopy assessment we did was based on 2019 data. We got it in 2021 when we were all meeting remotely. But it's somewhat dated. And so we've started the process of finding out how least expensively and most ongoingly we could have an update of our canopy. The initial suggestion from Planet Geo is a subscription based canopy study. We're trying to analyze whether that makes sense cost wise, or we're paying for another one and then paying for another one in 4 years. So we're analyzing the economics of that, and we'll get back to you. We'll say, and this is sort of preliminary to something I think Susan's going to talk about. We did meet with the sustainability committee, who also is very interested in our tree canopy because of the carbon offset, and trying to understand as we try to become at least more carbon neutral, what our trees are doing in terms of carbon offset. So they're also interested in that. And we'll keep them posted so that we make sure that whatever we do is useful to them as well. So happy to answer any questions about those two pieces.
So I was going to ask Alistair, when we did the Planet Geo study and got the results, I think it was 2021, right, Grant? Yes, it was based on 2019 U.S. Department of Agriculture flyovers.
Right.
And then they interpret that data. Is the USDA doing their flyovers more often now with drones, because it's, it's not quite as difficult these days to do those? And so,
Yeah, there's a couple different organizations that do flyovers. Like ODOT does them routinely for highway maintenance. They do aerial imagery of their freeways every year, so you might be able to find that. And then GeoSurvey also do them. But I'd be curious what kind of imagery the Planet Geo was using. They may have been using Google imagery. A lot of them run Google in the background. That's the imagery that they use. And that, I'm not sure how often, I think it's every 3 years Google updates
Right.
their imagery. So I'm not sure which data set Planet Geo was using.
We can dig that out. And
Yeah,
get
I
it
would
to you.
ask, it'd be
Welcome.
a good
All
question to
counsel.
ask them. If you're looking for cheaper alternatives to doing a canopy study, there's always iTree, which I'm sure Grant's
Right,
heard
yeah.
of, Spencer, that you can do in-house. And if you have an inventory, you can upload your inventory into iTree, and it will calculate all of those benefits like the carbon sequestration and the carbon offset and water mitigation. It will calculate that for you. And then you can also do your canopy study based on that as well. They have iTree canopy on there. I do those all the time. I usually do at least 1,000 points, and you can get your canopy coverage. But I don't suspect that your tree canopy coverage has changed hardly at all in 3 years, 2 or 3 years. It takes a decade or so for that really to for that to change much at all. You might have like a minor increase, but it wouldn't be anything significant.
well, we actually think that COVID changed it
Okay.
with all the building.
Yeah.
And the renovations and additions on homes.
Usually, big developments can make an impact, and then of course, storm events can make an impact as well, and your canopy cover. But if not much has changed on the landscape, then I wouldn't expect much to change in the canopy cover either. I think a more important metric to look at a lot of the time isn't so much tree canopy coverage, but stocking levels. So like the city of Columbus, I'll use them for instance. So they only have like 22% tree canopy coverage. That's a metric that they're stuck on right now. But the real metric for them is actually that they only have 56% stocking. So for every 100 sites that could support a tree, they only have trees in 56 of them, right? So you can see that there is room for improvement there. And so I think for Bexley, especially if you have an inventory that's fairly current, I'd be looking at stocking levels and trying to get as close to 100% as you can.
No, that's.
I think you'll be getting an email from me.
Yeah. So I try and figure out, how many total planting sites you have, or how many sites could support a tree, and then how many of those sites actually have a tree in them. And that would be your stocking level.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks, Alice.
very welcome.
Okay, so you want to go on to number 3? Then?
Yeah, which is somewhat related to the last comment, which is, you may all remember that when I did our review of our tree ordinances, we discovered that our section 3 of the actual ordinance that creates the tree commission says we should have a tree maintenance and planting plan. Now, we've had effectively that. We do a Tree City USA application. We have a lot of data, but I think we've talked about a few times, just putting that in one place, both sort of existing programs, plans, and perhaps visions for the future that might tie in, not to get ahead of us, but to the strategic plan's goal for increased canopy coverage, or however we're going to measure that. I understood Celeste agreed to be part of the group, given her degree.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I think Susan is willing to serve. With the commission's permission, I think what we will do then is invite some folks that aren't regular members of the commission to be part of that process to get a broader perspective. Also, we have some concern that if there are 4 of us from the commission on this, we actually have to do everything in public meetings, which is fine, but not efficient probably in terms of some of the nuts and bolts kind of stuff. So, we'll bring drafts back to you, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for input. If you have any suggestions for folks that aren't members of the tree commission that might be interested in a project like this, we would welcome those. We've sort of put out to Grant that he and Spencer should be involved however they think they can most efficiently participate in the process. So that's the update.
Okay, questions for Jim? Okay. So if you have suggestions of people you think would be good on the group, I'm sure Jim would be interested in that. Jim has a goal of finishing this by April, but
Susan laughed at me.
well, considering he's going to be gone for 6 weeks in March and the first part of April, it did seem to be.
6 weeks? No, I'm only going 2 weeks.
Didn't you
Did I
say?
give you the wrong dates?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to New Zealand, but only for 2 weeks.
Okay, well, it looked like you're leaving the end of February and coming back.
No,
April
I'm
12th.
leaving March 29th and coming back.
Oh,
April
okay,
13th.
all right. Well, I think you said.
'Cause I would not miss a tree commission meeting just for New Zealand.
Okay. Well, such great priorities, such great priorities. Thank you, Jim. Okay, let's go on to Mary McMahon. Do you have any updates on invasives?
No, I do not.
Okay, Jim and I talked a little bit about whether invasive should be part of the written plan for municipal care, and his wish was that it be a separate study group. So therefore, we're going to just urge that, if you could be done at the end of April and Jim's going to be done, now that he's not gone 6 weeks, that'd be good timing. Would that be possible?
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Well, why don't you consider when you could be done and then we can incorporate that. Okay. Okay. Anything else under old business? Okay. Bexley strategic plan, tree canopy coverage goal. How do we make this happen? So the mayor talked a little bit about the strategic plan and the notation there about growing our canopy coverage. We did talk about whether or not we should have the percentage of growth that we wanted to attain, Mayor. So again, I'm thinking instead of working through that here, maybe we should just do it between or among ourselves.
So yeah, and I think that can be also worked into the climate action plan. I mean, I think that's a good way to get more specific and technical with that.
Right.
But certainly that, which is, still going to go on through the first half, at least, of next year.
Right.
In development.
And
Which I think it looks like you're about to get.
right. And we hadn't been able to see the detail or to see the narrative for this on the strategic plan regarding growing the arboretum. So I'm also thoughtful that there are a lot of advantages to growing our tree canopy cover in addition to carbon sequestration. That's one, but we have stormwater runoff. And so I would be thoughtful about, adding all of them or not adding any.
Adding all of what?
Well,
Of the
stormwater,
reasons?
yeah. I mean, is it just, if you had to take a choice, would it be carbon? Would it be stormwater runoff? Or should it be both? Or should it be all the benefits of trees?
Well, so for the strat plan, it says
the strat plan.
Strategic
Okay,
plan
okay.
says, I'm opening the right version here. Where is it? It talks about sequestration, clean air, cooling homes, absorbing stormwater, providing habitat for urban flora and fauna. So all those things are listed as benefits,
In all the above. right?
all of the above.
Okay.
Yep.
In the strategic plan?
In the strategic plan.
Okay,
But within the climate action plan, it's not just about carbon, it's about in general, and it's going to be an environmental plan. So
Right.
all of those things intersect.
right. So are there any questions? Does anybody want to, kind of noodle with the narrative on the strategic plan? We can do that offline with a group email, looking at words you might want to include, knowing that, as the mayor said, it's more of a roadmap than a definitive, this is it and only it.
Well, and I think like when it comes to benchmarking, like you're talking about percentages, more specifics, those should live in the climate action plan.
Okay.
Not the strategic plan just says we want more trees.
We want more trees. Okay. Yeah.
And
Gee, is
it doesn't
anybody
say
good?
exactly
Yeah.
how many,
Yeah.
which is very similar. Like, we talk about a small engine phase out. We don't talk about how to get there, right? So the climate action plan is where
more
we should
topical.
benchmark that. Yeah.
More topical. Okay. So in climate change plan, is that up? Did that get attached, Grant?
That's one of our plans. It's currently under creation. It's kind of like the land use strategy, but it's a climate action plan.
Right,
Well,
right,
We do have, I think, the questions
We-
that they
we're-
ask us to consider.
right. When Jim and I met with Elizabeth and Rachel, we talked about the questions that having to do with trees, and she forwarded the plan, which I thought I'd forward and was going to be attached so that we could ask for tree commission feedback. Two of the questions had to do with kind of opinions. Do you feel that we should have more trees? And then two had to do about change agents. Would you change your behavior for more trees? I mean, it was kind of those things. So that's the year in review that we're looking at now.
Climate survey, it's under here. You can easily. Oh, there you go. That's one way to do it.
So we're just gonna look at those.
Yeah.
Brainstorm is barnstorming. I don't know what that is about me. I was like, oh, typo, barnstorming. Nope,
No,
can't read
Well,
that
Yeah,
word.
I think that that first question was one that they wanted us to noodle whether it was phrased.
here, the second one down, Grant, if you go back down. Okay. On city property, the city should prioritize planting and preserving the tree canopy to maximize carbon removal through the lens of a well-rounded arboretum. I mean, that's, kind of yes or no, or to what degree would you agree with that?
Well, my understanding was that these questions are sort of intended almost to give them a sense of the responders' demographic. So if they support this strongly, then the rest of their questions have are measured according to how they feel about this. If they're like opposed to this, which very few people are, probably, then their views might be seen differently than if they strongly support it or are in the middle on it. I think that what the committee was looking for is whether we've phrased that question or they've phrased that question in a way that we think it should be phrased. And it's really just to measure people's attitudes so that when you get to other questions about priorities, it's helpful.
Right. I mean, this is more opinion attitude versus what you would do, what you'd be willing to do to, kind of make this move forward.
I think there's an opportunity to a little bit to tweak this more so in terms of how it reads in the strategic plan. My concern with that type of question is that it is so focused on carbon removal, and there's so many other benefits of having a large tree canopy, not for like just like aesthetics, right? I mean, Bexley is known for its big trees, that if it is proposed to people and it's like trees are beneficial for carbon removal and sequestration, that people will be like, I don't really know about that, I don't really care about that, right? So I think that unless there are other questions within the survey that talk about the benefits of trees within our city that are not only specific to the, you know, and I don't say buzzword in a disparaging way at all, but as it's relating to a climate action plan, carbon sequestration sounds like it should go to a climate action plan. I think this climate action plan can be expanded a little bit in terms of what some of the goals of the tree commission have. And so to me, this feels somewhat of a leading question that is the only thing that trees are good for within the city. And there's so many other benefits that I think that either, unless there are other questions that are there that need to be added, or if that can be wordsmithed to include what the other benefits are.
But you might, I think if you click on it, it shows the little smaller print below. And I think you might be able just to end it, put the comma after tree canopy, because the smaller print actually describes more of what
Perfect.
trees
Right.
do.
Yes.
It might be something that we want to add to that.
Yep.
But I agree with you that sort of putting in the bold print to maximize carbon removal sort of frames it in a narrow way.
Or you could say preserving the tree canopy through the lens of a well-rounded arboretum.
Yeah, just take that out. And then the other information is down in the small print below. Yeah.
Now, there was a second question on there that had to do with more individual action. Now, I don't know if we can get to it or not.
I don't know if we can remember it.
It's under the what lifestyle changes. Yeah, continue down this page, Grant, thanks. Let's see. No, go back up. Let's see.
Show all it comes. Plant and preserve trees on my private property. So,
Oh, yeah.
keep going down. And show all right there. All of that.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So this again is more what you would do, not your opinion, but if you're called to action. So what does that say? Twice annually, the city plant and preserve trees on my private property. That's our goal. We do it in the spring and we were hoping to do it in the fall.
Planting or preserving?
Planting. I think they were concerned about having access to free trees.
Yeah, I think there was also our reaction to this, just Susan and I's was, well, maybe the question should be broader in terms of things you'd be willing to accept in order to preserve trees on private property. I mean, would you ordinances that limited how many trees you could take down when you did an addition? You know, it's a more provocative question, but it would be useful, I think, to know people's attitudes. If 90% of the folks in Bexley support that, that makes it a different question for city council than if 30% support it. Right?
So I also think, you know, I would be curious. I mean, if this is going out to the larger community, I would be curious to see if people would support a either a caliper per caliper replacement and or a dollar fee that is, you know, leveraged against the removal of trees on a property, right? Because I think that I don't imagine that many private residents are going to say, you can tell me what I can and can't do with the trees on my property if I want to do a new build, right? But can we do something that says, if you are taking trees down, you either need to find other areas on your property that you can do, either a like for like or a percentage replacement, or do you put into a general fund for, the trees for Bexley or whatever, to see I'd be curious to see what the greater community thinks about that, because there are, Worthington is one, Westerville is one, Dublin is one, where they have very strict in terms of what you can and can't replace. And if you physically can't do it, you have to pay a fee into a general fund that will help plant trees elsewhere in the community. So I think using this as a gauge to kind of test the community to see if they would support that or not would be, I'd be curious about that. The way that I read this, it seems that plan to preserve trees on my property twice annually. The city offers that. That seems like, oh, Bexley's going to start taking care of my trees for me. Fantastic, right? I mean, I think that reads a little confusing to me. I mean, if I read that and I didn't know anything, I'd be like, oh, I don't have to take care of any private trees on my property because the city's going to come and take care of it.
So I think Elizabeth had said their goal was April to maybe have this online, so we have some time to tinker with a little bit. And I think I'll get together with her and talk about, some of these additional layers that we've talked about. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add or endorse Elena's direction?
I like Elena's direction. I mean, and I guess I would even, I just saw today the article about Columbus adopting an ordinance, and I haven't really studied it well enough to know whether it's like more permissive than Dublin or the same, but it would, to the extent they'll give us space, it would be useful to have sort of a spectrum. I'd be willing to do this. I'd be willing to do this plus that, how much are our residents willing to have restrictions on what they can do with their trees on private property?
So we'll just continue the conversation, come back to you in January. So are people confused at all about what this is? And
Susan, did we get this? Lee?
No,
Okay.
they are.
Will we get this? And then we should be thinking. about it?
If you go to the meeting site through the city, there's actually, it says
Okay.
survey, what was it, climate survey. And there's a link in that document that'll take you to it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I mean, if you're describing other cities have done that, put restrictions prior to somebody coming in with a plan to, put a McMansion somewhere and take down half their trees. If that was done because they put out a survey first, or did they just their council just did it? Why wouldn't we just do it and not ask what council should do, kind of thing?
I have no idea. That's my official, that's my official stance.
I think we haven't studied Columbus's increased strength of their tree protection program yet. And I'm no longer familiar with Dublin and Westerville. We certainly were when we first started. So I think it all bears a little bit of education, investigation, maybe even chatting with them. So
Columbus is $100.
that's been the standard, although I know like in Alexander, Virginia, now they're $300, $400 as trees have become more expensive. And
I think it's $100 per diameter. It should be that if you pull the permits to remove the tree, didn't pull a permit, then they escalate the mutilation clause, which is trouble damages. Plus they have to pay for the replacements.
Yeah, I hear they also have a hard time,
They don't like it.
enforcing it. So,
yeah, boy, it's tough.
I mean, you can have all the ordinances in the world, but if you can't enforce them, they're really not.
Yeah.
Linda, I don't think I understood your question. What was about the survey? I didn't understand the question, Linda. About the survey, you had said.
Well, just when you're referring to the fact that other cities have ordinances that have something established where that you can't go ahead and put up something that's in because you're removing too many trees. If that's already established, then why don't we do it, kind of thing, as opposed to surveying first if we should do it.
I think she was saying with this survey provide the foundation for future ordinances rather than just doing the ordinances.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that if there's a compelling reason to have that ordinance in place that you wait for the climate action plan, if that's what you're saying.
Okay.
But
Anything else or on the go? I think the mayor pretty much updated us on the Main Street guidelines for 2024, Mr. Wilson, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I can just say it's that time of year to look at forming our Arbor Day committee. So I will be in touch with those of you who've served before. The Bexley Community Foundation did award the Arbor Day, Earth Day, Bexley Ferry Village Day, which I call Planet Bexley, but I think there's another term we're using. $4,500-ish for our events this year, with also the availability to tap some of the donor advised funds. So we're raring to go, and we'll set something up for January. Now, is there anything else under new business? Otherwise, we'll go to Miss Feibel, and she is serving her last month as a liaison between City Council and the Tree Commission.
Hasn't she demanded that she continue in the
I'm sure
role?
she does.
Yes.
Haven't you demanded to continue in the role?
Yes. demanded. How's that working out?
But I do want to thank so very much from you. Not only about how important it is to take time to look at every landscape and each person's home, to take time to make it as creative and as wonderful as we possibly can, but also how important it is to care for what we add to our arboretum, as it is to take care of what we have. And I thank you for all of that, work. And I thank you for all your time. I can tell my city citizens how lucky they are. Like, and take it so seriously, and I'm so passionate. I guess my last request would be that you would please always know that my ears are open. So that I want to, in every way I possibly can, make you be able to do your jobs even better. So if there's something I can do to help make that happen, please.
Okay, so Jordan, make sure that's in the minutes. Thank you, Gloria. Okay. Yes. We will give you. And
Thank
Grant,
you,
if you could
Lori.
pull up our year in review. As you know, we do this every year, and I tried to help organize it because I can't remember all the great things we did, so I divided into topic areas. So here is our year in review. In the regulatory, we got the mulch book. All of this is in collaboration with our staff consultants, with Grant, with the mayor, with city council, Spencer Monette. So when I say we, I meant the general we. So the mulch volcano ordinance was passed, and Jim compiled all the ordinances pertaining to the tree commission. We also approved time limit for the landscape installations and planting in front of the fences. It was a substantial discussion topic. I was looking for an adjective that was neutral but important. So substantial discussion topic, and I think ongoing. We reviewed the current state of formally approved landscape plans, and that continues through the initial work of Ellen and now transitioning to Monette, and discuss spacing for tree installations near stop signs, which I think is also an ongoing discussion. Sort of, right? Especially if you move houses, Jim.
And also substantial.
Yeah, and also substantial, right? In the urban tree forest, there is the installation of 60+ Persian ironwood on Parkview, and Grant partnered with Aspen for the removal of the Parkview declining trees, which was certainly a help to the urban forestry department. And bringing the tree plotter program on board with additional maintenance and planning tools, and approving our 40% tree canopy goal, and continued Bexley landmark tree program, plus the drone footage photos of all of the 23 landmark trees. So I think you've got all the 4 seasons of all the landmark trees, right? We go into partnerships. We partner with the Earth Day in Prairie Village. We partner with the public library on Joan Malus, founder of the Old Growth Forest Network. Partner with the Bloomers to install gator bags on the Persian ironwood, and then remove the gator bags, install protective fencing. Bad spelling there. Partner with the Bexley Community Foundation. They've been a tremendous partner as far as giving us funds. Raised over $54,000 in 22. And then partnered with the Senior Center for the Bexley Landmark Tree Tour via golf carts, which was a sight to behold.
It was a lot of positive energy. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And then on the landscape application review, we tidied up our procedure for reviewing landscape applications. Worked collegially with community builders and pod design on the North Cassidy. There's a large focus on reviewing plans for 2200 East Main, additional new build landscape reviews, lots of plantings in front of fences. And then celebrating Arbor Day all of April. We did tree planting at Jeffrey, Treador at City Council, and on and on and on that went. So in number 6, what could we have done better? Were we welcoming and civil to our applicants? And what of our disappointments? So what could we have done better? Anything come to mind? You know, this is kind of like a relentless inventory of our own liabilities.
We could have had better snacks at our meeting.
We could add some snacks, any snacks other than just drinking water, yeah.
I think everyone did a great job and I'm honored and thrilled to be with all of you and learning and keeping it going.
That's right.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate or not, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. You know, having got my first year under my belt, I've enjoyed very much thing. And I, you know, this is just geared towards myself probably more than any.
As a homeowner, like to know if there was problems with the plant that I'm not aware of. I mean, it's
Like
a fact.
daylilies.
Yeah, it's.
We've dropped that hint
Daylilies.
a few times.
Well,
Like Lorraine.
I'm just going to jump in. I think as part of the discussion, and I think it is a good discussion we should have, but there's a difference between that we're reviewing plans that the people have already hired a designer, and it's the designer's responsibility to educate their client in terms of that. And so we're not the client, we're not paying the designer for that. So there's certain things that I think if it's like a city property that we're looking at, I think we can definitely, yeah, we hate daylilies. I mean, I personally don't hate daylilies, but I think they have a bad rap. But I mean, I think that that's something that the tree commission needs to decide in terms of to what level, and it might vary in terms of residential versus commercial, in terms of how much input should the tree commission have on that, right? So if it's a tree and a tree is proposed, you might hate the tree. You think the tree is horrible. It might be a sweet gum, but someone might like the sweet gum. They might like the fall color of that, right? So I think that's something that should definitely be part of that decision, because I think that that is a challenge for both staff to review as well as the commission members. So I think if we can have clarification on that, it's going to be easier all the way around.
Perhaps more from the standpoint of saying, we recommend that you reconsider this particular plant because of the fact that it does tend to have invasive, it has invasive tendencies, I should say.
I think if it's invasive, that is a different thing, right? So like daylilies are not invasive.
Right. No, I'm
They're-
talking about truly.
But yeah, so I think that things that are truly invasive, and I think that that then ties into what we were talking about with, you know, having that little separate study group of like, how does Bexley want to address invasive plants? Because then that can certainly trickle down. I mean, if it's listed as invasive, then I think definitely it's within our right to be like, you shouldn't plant that.
Well, there's, yeah.
I mean, I mostly agree with Elena, but I don't think all landscaper designers are created equal.
No.
None are as good as Elena, we know that. I mean, so.
Gordon,
I think.
please
I
make
do
a note.
think there's some deference, and I do think, even though like the architecture code says specifically that the ARB isn't to substitute its personal taste for the architectural design, I think we have to apply that standard. So I think we have to ask ourselves, are we substituting our personal preferences for the applicants versus are we offering limitations that are good for the city as a whole? So that would be sort of my response to Mary's suggestion. I did have another comment on how well we're doing. I mean, I think we've had a very good year, but we've, you know, sort of spent a huge amount of our fall dealing with landscape designs, which I think has set us back in terms of our other responsibilities, in terms of thinking strategically for the city, how we increase our canopy, doing things like what I think we'll be doing next year in terms of what's our preferred ground cover and should we change our preferred ground cover, those kind of things, I think have gotten sort of pushed to the side because so much of our energy has been put on landscape reviews.
So, Mayor, when Mary mentioned that she's finishing her first year, and so, you know, she doesn't look too bad for having gone through 1 year.
She's doing great.
Yeah, but it did make me think, when I saw in the blast that appointments are coming for some of the commissions that have, that need new members because people rotated off, that it might be good if people had a training session. I know that some of us felt that we weren't necessarily at full speed for some of our reviews as far as legalities and responsibilities to the city versus, say, our own opinions versus what's good for the city. I'm wondering if there maybe should be one, you know, information session for new commission members.
And I have to admit, we've done those started about 4 or 5 years ago with Airbnb's app,
Okay.
but we don't typically with tree commission, partially because that sort of review role has become more and more prevalent. So it's just a blind spot. So I think that would be really helpful for new members. I also think it would be good to have a special training for tree commission in general with our zoning attorney, just to
I agree.
talk about it, because tree commission is a unique set of issues between, every commission and board has that. So
Yeah,
that'd
I
be really
mean,
good.
We can only do better.
I think you guys are great. I will, if I can have a second,
Yes, you may.
you asked a question up, it disappeared. So I don't know,
Go up
what
and
can we
read
do
it.
better?
What can we do better?
You can't possibly do better. You guys are the best,
I
but
think-
I think there's something else, some other
Yeah, if
verbiage I
you-
saw.
The highlights, the attachment.
It's fine. So one of the questions was, we welcome in civil disappointments. I think that this is true of all of our boards and commissions, that sometimes we get in critical mode and sort of forget that don't want to put this on you guys, but that they're human beings at the lectern, and often it's somebody's private home that they've put a lot of time pouring into plans, or even if it's a commercial property, they're professionals that have taken time to develop that plan. So I think we always have to remind ourselves, like, what is the spirit with which we're meeting people. And I think that I aspire that our boards and commissions have a friendly, approachable voice. And that even if we can disagree with things and say, I personally don't love the choice of,
Daylilies.
and I think that we should
Winter
consider some natives.
creeper.
Or even if it's a much more emotional topic about removals, like that can be had in a way that's constructive, but still we don't lose that sort of approachable voice. Like, we should aspire, I think, always to be friendly, to be engaging, at our best moments. And we all fall short of it. So it's just a constant sort of hope that as we approach all these things, that we can bring our best selves. And you guys are doing a great job. I'm not saying you're not. I just think it's a thing to remember in all of our boards and commissions.
So Amor Tolles wrote this book, Rules of Civility. So today, when I was doing the highlights, I thought, oh, well, I'll just Google this book and find out what the 5 or 10 rules are. Well, there don't seem to be 5 or 10 rules, but I'm going to keep looking and see if we can find out what the rules of civility are. January, we'll do those.
I think that I'd just like to second what Ben said, because just in the choice of words and, when you're talking with somebody, it is their house. They've gone to a long trouble. And a lot of times, it's not so great, and some people don't have such a great opinion of commissions in general, because a lot of times they tell them things that they don't want to hear. So I just think we need to really think about that very seriously every time people come in.
Yeah, I agree. I think that part of, maybe educating people when they come in with a plan, because they've hired a landscape person, and the landscape person probably has a budget. So they're looking at a certain amount of money they can spend. And if we can encourage them to, try other options that might not cost much more, but would probably enhance their design, I think that we should, at that point, offer that. And not just go with, and I remember in college, we always talked about the difference between a horticulturalist and a landscape architect, which architects typically have commercial properties and they're limited to a certain amount of, what they can put in. So if you're looking for horticulturally, you can probably offer something more unique. And it's not to say that it's incorrect, but I think it just can be better. And we would, as a city, would want to be better. We wouldn't want to be like every other community anyway. So.
Any other thoughts? Okay.
Madam Chair, I do want you to know, we do have doors coming. by the
Yeah.
way. Not right now.
Right. We said quarter to 6 was our
I just
time.
let you know that the
Right.
future, there are
The
doors.
future is
No, the
here.
doors, that we're
Oh,
gonna
the doors.
actually get doors again.
Oh,
Yes.
when you said the doors, I thought you
No,
meant the doors. No.
I mean, there will be.
Yeah, okay,
There will be doors again.
okay, all right.
A recommendation I have, an improvement would be that if you're going to approve landscape designs, that you provide the landscape architects and the contractors with the most current tree planting standards. Because if you're trying to get to 40% tree canopy coverage, then you need all of these trees to survive. An example would be at St. Charles. So you guys approved the landscape designs. It's on the sheet that you passed around. And when I looked at them, all those trees still have the burlap on them, the wire baskets on them, the twine is still on them. One of them still had a ribbon at the top of it. So like those trees are not going to be successful. They'll linger for a couple of years and then they'll die and have to be replaced. So you just lost several years of growth from those trees. And you have goals of meeting 40% tree canopy coverage. So, you know, it'd be good to provide those landscape architects with standards that you can enforce.
Okay, thank you. So Monette, I hope you wrote that down. I do think that on our plans, those are usually,
No, they're not. So, Mark Reiner is a Bexley resident, and he is very adamant about how he plants his trees. And I've had discussion with him about it, and he's pretty adamant how he does
well,
it.
we do know that there are standards and we have the latest standards in. I think Spencer, you and I have also talked about that too. There's planting, I mean, the depth, not only the depth, but then the baskets and the burlap and all the above. So I think is when Jim moves into his hyperactivity stage in January, February, March, that should be part of the planting and maintenance plan. So
I think maybe that's then shows what we need to improve on is enforcement. I mean, now that we have, somebody looking at plans, but code enforcement definitely needs to be improved.
okay, any other things? So again, I would like to have you, put your books, give your books to Sheila that you've kind of decorated. If you could put on there, who is it from? Is your first name like from Jim? And just write Grace George, ages 3 through 7. And then I'm going to leave you with this little quote that I got out of the book of the Catholic Choir concert about the difference that everybody makes. Okay, so anyone who thinks that they are.
Susan, I'm sorry, your mic isn't on. Your mic isn't on.
Okay, the difference that everybody makes. Are we ready, Sheila, Barb? This is the parting comment for 2023. Anyone who thinks they are too small to make a difference has never tried to fall asleep with a mosquito in the room. So with that, we'll adjourn and say a happy Christmas, Merry New Year. On we go. Yes.